I'm happy to welcome you to this series of Dad Reads Books. The book for this series is titled A Tiger for Malgudi by novelist r.k.narayan. And we are starting this book at the very beginning. And r.k.narayan is usually quite a humorous writer. He became very popular because his novels are very full of interesting events, twists and turns, and he bases it in India, in the jungles, the forests of South India, and the Malgudi is in imaginary name. Oh, sorry, the name of an imaginary village in the south of India. So he has based his stories in Malgudi, and we start with the beginning. During the Kumbh Mela festival, Kumbh Mela is a very huge festival, which is, Mela means all people coming together and celebrating, and it's a fair, Mela. Kumbh Mela is a very huge fair where millions of people, it's a religious festival in India, in the north of India, and millions, literally the whole sea of people will be part of the festival. They'll all be coming out and mingling. There'll be religious rituals. There'll be sacred dips and bath in the rivers, visit to temples, and so many religious rituals being conducted by various people, thousands and thousands of it, and food all around, and everybody is in a very gay, joyful mood and celebrating. This happens once in 12 years. It is not done every day on a continuing basis. At the end of 12 years, this is as per the zodiac. There is a calendar as which, and then the religious people say that the next Kumbh Mela will be from so and so date to so and so date. So, this Kumbh Mela, which occurs every 12 years at the confluence of the three rivers, Ganga, Jamuna, and Saraswati in Allahabad. Do you know anything more about Kumbh Mela? Can you tell?
It happens every solar cycle. So the solar cycle is every 11.5 years.
Okay.
And the Kumbh Mela happens every solar cycle.
Okay.
It has a deep significance on the human psyche and the human morphology and anatomy.
So that's the reason why this Kumbh Mela is celebrated, and it is celebrated once in 12 years. These calculations are not random or according to somebody's whims and fancies. There are stellar and astrological confluences which determine when the melas should be celebrated. So, this is done at the confluence of three rivers of Ganga, Yamuna, and Saraswati at Allahabad. Allahabad is a city in north of India. Ganga is a river, Yamuna is another river, and Saraswati is another river. These are all sacred rivers in the north of India. And if you know anything about this, these rivers have been sacred since last 20, 30,000 thousands of years. And in fact, the river Saraswati, these rivers are all referenced to in the Vedas, Vedas being the oldest book civilization has written. And the river Saraswati, which has been profusely, in superlative terms, exalted, has disappeared from the earth because some 16,000 years ago, there was some volcanic shift or some shift in the mountains in the Himalayas, and the river either changed its course or vanished somewhere. So before that, the Saraswati was one of the hugest rivers. Now the Ganga and Yamuna are still flowing, and the Saraswati, this had a conference when they all meet at Allahabad. So at the confluence of these three rivers in Allahabad, a vast crowd gathers for a holy bath in the rivers. They have to dip in the river and pray to God, and it is very good for their soul. So this, amidst that ocean of humanity, also arrives a hermit with his companion, a tiger. So there are millions of people, and one amongst them is a hermit. Hermit is man who doesn't have a house and a wife and a family and all that thing. He lives in a hut or something in a forest, and he lives on what he picks and plucks from the trees in the jungle or forest, some fruits or vegetables or something. And he has a companion, a tiger. So he does not hold the animal by a leash, since he claims they were brothers in their previous lives. So this tiger is his brother, he says, and it is with him. He doesn't have to treat it as an animal and as a pet or as anything. They'll walk together, go wherever, and then he'll talk to it, and then it will do what he tells. He does not hold the animal on a leash, since he claims they were brothers in previous lives. The tiger freely moves about without hurting or scaring anyone. Such a combination seemed incredible when I read reports of it and saw the photographs. This is what the author says. But as I got used to the idea, I began to speculate on the possibilities of a novel. So he has written this novel on the tiger. Now this entire novel is as if the tiger is telling the story in first person singular. I, in this novel, refers to the tiger. He also says that in all the literature he has come across and we have seen, the animal is treated as something separate, and it has never been incorporated or built into the society. And man always imagines that only man has got the imagination and the ability to think and to create plans and to communicate and all that. Man assumes he is all important, that all else in creation exists only for his sport, amusement, comfort, or nourishment. Valmiki, the greatest of poets, who composed the Ramayana, cried out when he noticed the agony of a bird, which had been shot by a hunter. The arrow shot down the bird, and the bird fell down and cried in agony. And Valmiki noticed it. Valmiki is the greatest poet or laureate of India. He wrote the Ramayana in Sanskrit, as a poetry. So, so now next question is, why a tiger, not a mouse? Asked a smart journalist who had come to interview me. When I mentioned the subject of my novel, he asked why not a mouse, so that the chief character may not be trampled upon or lost sight of in a hole. So now the story starts. The author, r.k.narayan, says this. My story begins with an aged tiger lying in its cage, ruminating on its past, beginning with its cubhood and wild days in the jungle, and later life in captivity as a circus star. It attains freedom when it breaks loose from a film shooting camp and wanders into the town. The terror-stricken public attempts to get it shot, but an ascetic who appears on the scene protects and adopts it as a companion. So the tiger is adopted as a companion by an ascetic. Ascetic is about a hermit, a man who is not part of society but he lives aloof and has no great interest in being part of society. He doesn't own much of any property, house, or possessions. So he adopted it. So the tiger uh, hold on, let me pick the thread here. Now this hermit, he adopts a tiger and takes it as his companion, as his brother, and he uses his abilities and powers and skills to save the tiger and transform it inwardly. He would talk to the tiger, and the tiger would understand, and they built up a relationship, living together. The tiger would obey him exactly implicitly, exactly as he wants it to do. So, so the tiger was brought into a zoo. Now, where did that tiger zoo come? The first chapter starts with this. I have no idea of the extent of this zoo. So the tiger is obvious. I here means the tiger. Tiger is saying, I do not have an idea of the extent of the zoo. I know only my corner and whatever passes before me. The tiger has been put into a cage in a corner. On the day I was wheeled in, I only noticed two gates opening to admit me. When I stood up, I caught a glimpse of some cages ahead and also heard the voice of a lion. Sorry for that. The man who had transferred me from the forest stepped out of his jeep and said after a glance in my direction, "He's all right. Now run up and see if the end cage is ready. This animal is used to human company and a lot of free movement. We must keep him where people will be passing. The open air enclosure must also be available to him when the wild ones are not let out. See to it." So the big man has given the instruction. They have shown me special consideration. They have shown me special consideration by the grace of my master, whom I may not see again. All the same, lying here on the cool floor, I madly hope that my master might suddenly appear out of a crowd, open the door of my cage and command, "Come out, let us go." Such is my dream. I keep scrutinizing faces, but all the faces look dull and monstrous, monotonous, none radiant like my master's. Men, women, and children peer through the bars and sometimes cry out aloud, "Ah, see this tiger, what a ferocious beast!" and make crude noises to rouse me. Fling a stone if the keeper is not looking, and move on to appreciate similarly the occupant of the next cage. You are not likely to understand that I am different from the tiger next door, that I possess a soul within that is forbidding, within this forbidding exterior. I can think, I can analyze, judge, and remember, and do everything that you do, perhaps with greater subtlety and sense. I lack only the faculty of speech. So the tiger is saying that it can do everything that human beings can do except speak. But if you could read my thoughts, you would be welcome to come and listen to the story of my life. At least you could slip your arm through the bars and touch me, and I will hold out my forepaw to greet you, after retracting my claws, of course. You are carried away by appearances. My claws and fangs and the glowing eyes frighten you, no doubt. I don't blame you. I don't know why God has chosen to give us this fierce makeup. The same God who has created the parrot, the peacock, and the deer, which inspire poets and painters. They are such delicate and beautiful creatures. The same God has made me so fierce. I would not blame you for keeping your distance. I myself shuddered at my own reflection on the still surface of a pond while crouching to drink water. Not when I was really a wild beast, but after I came under the influence of my master and learned to question, who am I? Don't laugh within yourself to hear me speak thus. I'll tell you about my master presently. Sorry, I got a cough. I recollect my early days as a cave dweller and jungle beast. However much my master might have disliked the term beast, I recollect my days as a beast with a mixture of pleasure and shame at the far end of the Mempi range, which trails off into the plains. I lived in my cave on the edge of a little rivulet, which swelled and roared when it rained in the hills, but was fordable in dry season. So the little rivulet is a small little trickle of water flowing, but when it rains in the hills, it would fill with water. All the water flowing from the up the hills will flood it, and it will be roaring with so much of water. And in the dry season, the water would be very little and could easily be crossed over on foot. Fordable means you can cross it on foot, with the jungle stretching away on the other side. I remember my cubhood when I frolicked on the sandy bank and in the cool stream, protected and fed by a mother. I had no doubt whatsoever that she would forever be there to look after me. A natural delusion which afflicts all creatures. They all think that their mother, their people who protect, will always be there. However, she just vanished from my world one evening, and I was seized with panic and hid myself in the cave. When I ventured out, I was chased, knocked down, and hurt by bigger animals and menaced by lesser ones. I starved, and except when I could catch miserable creatures like the fox cubs and rabbits and squirrels, somehow I survived. But in course of time, not only survived, I grew and became the supreme lord of the jungle, afraid of no one, striking terror in others. It was naturally a time of utter violence, and unthinking cruelty inflicted on weaker creatures. Everyone I encountered proved weaker and submissive. But that submissiveness did not count. I delivered the fatal blow in any case when I wished, and strode about as the king of the forest. By the way, who crowned the lion king of the forest? Probably a fable writer. Carried away by the pompous mane and beard, I suppose, a more slothful creature than a lion I have never seen. All he thinks of is eat and then sleep. He lays down after food, after eating, he lays down for days on end. Not a single muscle will move. He'll sleep until he has digested that meal. All his energy is conserved for hunting food and yes. As for his supreme strength, you will be surprised to know that when faced with something of importance and a challenge, he would run away. Once in the circus, we were let out to fight. Myself, a tiger, and a lion. And the moment we both entered the ring for a fight, the lion turned and ran away. So that is the courage of the lion, the king of the jungle. So, but when I approached, every creature in the jungle trembled. So I know that I am the lord of this world. When I strode out from the cave, the scent went ahead, and except the monkeys and birds on trees and all others, the others all shrank out of sight. The monkeys and birds were up in the trees, so they would look at me and they would chatter about me, but the others on the ground would all run away. When I prowled through half-sunken jungle grass, I expected the differential withdrawal from my path of other creatures. I expected other creatures to move out of my way in deference, and if they did not, I would punish them. So it goes on. I think I'll stop here. This is an introduction to this book. We'll continue it next time. I hope you like this little bit which I have read out. Thank you. Bye.